Hello students, hope you all are well. Today in this video I am going to cover the very first chapter of your Flamingo book, The Last Lesson, and the author of this chapter is Alfonso Daudet. In this video I'll cover about the poet, the summary and the important points. So starting with, Alfonso Daudet was born in 1840 and he died in 1897. He was a French novelist and a short story writer. The Last Lesson is set in the days of the Franco-Prussian War in the year 1870 and 1871. In this war, the French was defeated by the Prussia, which was led by Bismarck. Prussia then consisted of what now are the nation of Germany, Poland and the past of Austria. The story highlights the pain that is inflicted on the people of the territory by its conqueror and by taking away their rights to study or speak their own language. Alfonso Daudet has used very simple English to explain this story. So the theme is, as I said, the pain that is inflicted on the people of a territory by its conqueror by taking away the right to study or speak their own language. The summary. The narrator, Franz, started very late for the school that morning, and he was afraid because Mr. Hamel would question them on participles. He did not know anything about them. He thought of running away and spending the day out of doors. He found the outside world to be more tempting than the participles, but he had enough strength to resist, so he hurried off to school. As friends passed the town hall, there was a crowd in front of the bulletin board. For the last 2 years, all their bad news of the lost battle, the draft, the order of the commanding officers had come from there, and he wondered what could be the matter, but he had no time to stop there. Usually, when the school began, there was a lot of noise. The opening and closing of desks, lessons repeated in unison, the teacher's great ruler rapping on the table, created enough bustle which could be heard out in the street. Franz has counted on the commotion to get to his desk without being seen. But to his amazement, that day everything was as quiet as Sunday morning. He saw his classmates already in their places, and Mr. Hamel walking up and down with his terrible iron ruler in his arm. Mr. Hamel spoke very kindly to him, and he was dressed in beautiful green cloth, his frilled shirt and the little black silk cap, all embroidered, which he wore only on the inspection and the prize days. But the thing that surprised Franz was the most to see the village people sitting at the back benches. Mr. Hamel mounted his chair and in a grave and gentle tone announced that in the school of Alice and Lorraine only Germans would be taught. The order had come from Berlin, so that was their last lesson. He requested them to be very attentive. The narrator was shocked. He felt extremely sorry for not learning his lessons. His books, that had seemed such a nuisance, had all of a sudden become his best friend, difficult to part with. The idea that Mr. Hamel wouldn't teach him any more made him forget about his ruler and how cranky he was. Mr. Hamel made the class realize how reluctant they were to learn and put off learning their own native language. He also confessed that he too at times were not serious, and when he had to go fishing, he would give them a holiday. He told them that French language was the most beautiful, the most logical, and the clearest language. He advised them to hold fast their language as it would be, as if they had the key to their prison. Mr. Hamel explained the grammar lesson with so much patience. The narrator had listened so carefully that he was amazed how well he understood that day. Everyone was sincerely listening. When the narrator heard the pigeons coo, a strange thought came to his mind. He thought, would they make the pigeons sing in German? All were busy writing, while Mr. Hamel sat motionless in his chair. For 40 years he had been there, and only the desk and the benches had been worn smooth. The walnut trees were taller, and the hopvine that he had planted twined about the windows to the roof. It was difficult for him to leave. His voice trembled with emotions. All at once, the church clock struck 12. The trumpet of the Prussian soldiers returning from the drill sounded under their window. Mr. Hamel stood up, and his face was very dull, without any expression in his chair. The narrator had never seen him so tall. He tried to speak but couldn't. He turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk with all his might, and he wrote as large as he could, "Viva la France." Then without a word, he made a gesture to them with his hand. "School is dismissed. You may go." So the narrator of the story over here is the little Franz. Okay, and some of the important points of the story is here. Franz, the narrator, started the school very late, feared a scolding as Mr. Hamel would question them on participles. Next, he wanted to stay outdoor, but he had the strength to resist temptation, so he hurried off to the school. Next point, usually there used to be a lot of commotion, but he found it to be quiet. The old men of the village were also sitting on the last bench. Mr. Hamel was dressed in his best clothes, and he did not scold him and was kind. Point number 4. Mr. Hamel told his student that an order had come from Berlin that all the schools of French district of Alsace and Lorraine would teach German henceforth. Point number 5. Franz was sorry for not learning his lessons. He felt he could give up his books. Point number 6. Mr. Hamel announced that French was the most beautiful language in the world. It was the clearest and the most logical one. Next point. Point number 7. Mr. Hamel explained grammar with patience. Then gave them a lesson in writing. The last point, his voice trembled. Something choked him. He could not go on, so with all his might, he wrote as large as he could, "Viva la France." The meaning is, "Long live France." So that's all, student, from the first chapter. I hope you all have understood. If you have any doubt, any question, drop a message and I'll reply to it. Thank you. Have a nice day.